Commission is currently working on, I suppose it could be ultimately a self-diagnosis tool, or it could help tutors to establish, but essentially 5 dimensions. There's about things, information seeking, there's a piece about communication, there's a piece about actually making stuff, actually making digital content, there's the obvious piece about safety on the internet, and finally there's the ability to problem solve in a digital environment. So, they're actually setting out a competency framework with a number of subheadings under those 5, and then at 3 levels of proficiency. I can do it at a very basic level, I can do it. So somewhere in all of that matrix then there's a map of what works for and what's needed for each individual, a bit like what Leo was saying, that personal thing, where people take control and say, this is the bit I need for me, but rather than just talk about it in a woolly way, there will be ways to actually self-diagnose and then say, well, here's what I need to do to get to where I want to be.
So, we did a blended learning project in 2011 with 12 organisations across Ireland. 10 were ETB based and 2 were community education, one of which happened to be on Casal as well. And if you go onto nala.ie and look up blended learning report, there's a report up there about how those particular projects were run. It's not academic because I wrote it, but there's lots of. I suppose we came to it very open-ended. We didn't know how it was going to be used. We didn't know what sort of outcomes we were going to get out of it. And there's lots of really interesting things in there that would challenge, I think, a lot of the assumptions that people have about basic literacy learners. So, for example, we found that learners are comfortable with technology. If you set it up for them properly, if you support them in the right way, they can be very supportive. They are interested in it. And they very quickly see the benefits of learning about technology. So there's, peer-to-peer support is something I wanted to mention as well, because that's something we saw a lot, which is fantastic. That if you set up a classroom and you have a tutor at the front of it, and if that's the model that you use, well then you're not really encouraging peer-to-peer learning. Whereas if you use technology in a blended learning context, you can very quickly see lots of really interesting things happening. You'll see learners leaning into each other. They've learned something, they want to tell the next person what's happening. You can see an element of competition happening between learners, where one person gets an award or they get so far of a path, somebody else wants to do the same as them. So it really opens up lots of interesting discussions around how adult education can happen in the future with technology.
As I understand the question, you're asking about, how does that notion of participation work for something like a skill set connected with, we'll say, numeracy in practice. I think a couple of points about, when we look at a participation model of literacy as distinct from an individual model of literacy, is that we look at the activity or the practice. We move out just from looking at an individual. We say what's going on in, let's say, sell by dates and use by dates, and or we might say rounding up and rounding down, all of these actions that go on within the transactions in supermarkets and in various settings that we're involved in. And we say that, on the one hand, we might say that the person has literacy difficulties, and that's a kind of a competence model. And a participation model says, actually, the practice is making assumptions about everybody that don't stack up. They're making an assumption that everyone has that set of skills, and they're excluding some people. So it shifts the problem, we'll say, from a problem connected with an individual to a problem connected with a practice and with participation within that practice. Now that's a big theoretical one, kind of answer, but I think it's an important difference, and it's important from a policy perspective.
Yeah. Interestingly, what struck me, the project that I spoke to you about, hellobrain.eu, is funded by the European Commission. And very much at the outset, it was a stage 2 funding process, and I got a little message to say, we really love this and we would really love to fund it, but you need to address the digital divide, which is quite difficult when you put forward a proposal about an online brain health awareness campaign. So we did, and we put in our proposal, and we do address it, and we've done a lot of print materials, and we've done actually a PDF version of our app. Where people can download it, and there's a little diary, and it does what the app does, which is daily suggestions. Now I've been going around because of Hello Brain is just one of my projects. I run a whole program of research and intervention, development and education, and I go around the country a lot, and a lot of the times speaking to older adult groups. When I started doing it first, I would say to people, I would almost apologise that some of my work was online. And I would suggest ways that people could do it. I did earlier this year, a series of 10 films, and we made them available on DVD, and they can be bought from Trinity Shop for €5, just to cover our costs, etc. Now I have stopped doing that. When I go out and talk to the older adults, I just say to them, you have got to get online. You have got to find a way to get online. You've got to get somebody to get you online. You've got to get somebody to get you the information that is available online, because you're the person who's suffering. And this is about health awareness and health literacy. And we're hoping, by our campaign, we're hoping that people will spread the word. Like us on Facebook, Hello Brain, and at Hello Brain EU on Twitter. But one of the things that we discovered is that over 50s are the biggest growing users of the internet and smartphones, etc. But the prime reason that they go online is to find out information about health-related questions. That's the main reason they're going online. So that could be a way to get that audience, that group online, is to say this is how you answer your question, because it's about satisfying a need.